Sit over here with you until I make me go sit over there.
Good evening. I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order on July 25th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. We have one item this evening on the agenda. It is order number 22-100-8634, proposed amendment to the City Code, Chapter 125-6, salary schedule to amend the stipends for the Board of Registrars and Assistant Registrars as submitted by the City Clerk. I will begin by reading the letter submitted by the City Clerk. Honorable President Ossing and Councilors, enclosed for your consideration is an amendment to Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 6, Salary Schedule. This amendment would change the stipend that is paid to members of the Board of Registrars and the Assistant Registrar of which is the Assistant City Clerk. The current stipends received by the members of the Board of Registrars and Assistant Registrars have not changed since 1989. Currently, the chair receives $781, and the other two members each receive $470 annually. In addition, the Assistant Registrar currently receives $483.25 annually. Due to the continual changes in election laws, I feel that the Assistant Registrar is not being properly compensated for the work being performed throughout the year. The proposal I am submitting would set the stipends for all members of the Board of Registrars at $500 per member annually. The chair has no additional responsibilities, and I feel that changing the annual stipends to an equal amount for all members is best course of action. Additionally, I am proposing to increase the annual stipend for the Assistant Registrar to $750 annually due to the added responsibilities that have come with the positions due to changes in the election laws. In preparing for my FY 2023 budget, I have allocated sufficient funds for the proposed changes, so there is no additional money required. Sincerely, Stephen W. Kerrigan, City Clerk. Good evening, Mr. Clerk. I will open it up to you and to the committee members and council if they have any questions going forward with this stipend.
Well, I think the letter pretty much says it all. I did a survey of some area communities that the city usually checks with for like-sized, as well as some communities just around us to see what the other their registrars were paid. It varies greatly from not compensated at all to a high of almost $4,000 per member per year that I found for another municipality. So, I think the driving factor behind this was more, I never understood why the registrars, the pay scale was what it was. I think it was a salary ordinance many years ago, and then changes that happened to that salary ordinance. That's why there was the $781 and $470. The assistant registrar, who is the assistant city clerk, currently gets $486.25 annually. And what that money is supposed to be used for is to compensate him or her, the person in the office, for their time in all the work that they have to do with elections. On election day alone, we are here at about 5 a.m. and we go home generally about 10 p.m. at night. That happens twice a year. So just take all those hours and divide it by the $486, and he's getting a couple of bucks an hour. So that doesn't include all the voter registration hours. And now with early voting, in-person early voting, change to the election law under Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2022 with early voting, voter registration now being 10 days prior instead of 20. So the 10th day will always fall on a Saturday because we have elections on Tuesday. So moving forward from now on, every last day to register to vote will be on a Saturday, even for municipal elections. And our office will be required to be open from 9 to 5. So myself and the assistant clerk are the ones who will be manning that, as we are the non-union employees in our office. So I felt that it was justifiable to try and increase this a little bit. As I said in my letter, and as I said to the mayor in the letter that I sent to him when I prepared my FY 2023 budget, that I had allocated the funds appropriately at this time. There was no change in my budget. It was just basically moving them from one line to another, and this actually aligns the ordinance with the changes that I'm proposing. So that's all this does.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I know I'm fully in full support of this, speaking to you over the years. I think it's the right time to do it, and it certainly makes sense, the amount of work that the clerk's office does. You have an amazing staff, and thank you so much for that. I will open it up to the rest of the committee. Councilor Orland.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do, Steve. I'm in support of this. I'm just curious for both you and the assistant clerk, where the assistant clerk also holds the title of assistant registrar of voters. In that line item under our budget, should that be changed if indeed you're working on Saturdays and long days, obviously on election days and primary election days and so forth? Are we compensating both lines correctly, your line as well as the assistant clerk's line?
Well, honestly, Council, I'll be truthful with baby steps. If I can get this change pushed through first, I mean, I am the clerk of the Board of Registrars, so I mean, in my budget, you'll see I get an annual stipend of $1,435 a year. Granted, the assistant registrar line hasn't changed in, I don't know how many years, probably since the early 90s. So I felt that it was appropriate to do that. Maybe at some point in the future we can do a full-scale look at it and see if we are, you know, if it should change. Some of it is based on the number of registered voters. It does, under Chapter 51, the election law, it requires, you know, the stipend to be set at only a certain amount. So, but we can, I'm happy to look at that going forward.
And that's why I question it, because it sounds like you have limits when it comes to the titles under the registrar of voters. But when you, in a smaller community I used to work at, they had a split position of either elections person / assistant city clerk, or it might have been assistant registrar. That's what I'm starting to wonder, is maybe it needs to be brought over to the budget side if there are limits to what you can do within the general law on this side, because the amount of work I see all the time with your department. So I'm in support of this. I was just curious.
I appreciate it, but yeah, at some point, I'm sure in the future, we'll have to, you know, in conjunction with the mayor's office, look at it.
Understandable.
Full scale.
Well, we'll start at baby steps, as you said. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, City Clerk Kerrigan. I know we all see the work of the elections and you running around to the different locations and being super active, and your entire team.
Yep.
So definitely in support of this, and I can't believe it hasn't been changed since '89. That feels, you know, sad that it's been that long. So this seems like a very updated change. So I would move to approve this.
Is that motion? Motion has been made and seconded to approve order number 22-100-8634, proposed amendment to City Code, Chapter 125-6, salary schedule to amend the stipends for the Board of Registrars, Assistant Registrars as submitted by the City Clerk by adding to the salary schedule referenced in Chapter 125-6 the following: Register Voters Chair, $500. Register of Voters, $500. Assistant Register of Voters, $750. And I will second that. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I just wanted clarification on this. When you did your analysis of the other communities, is it typically an annual stipend, or is it a per election stipend?
Some communities pay them on a quarterly basis. Some communities do it on a semi-annual. They get you know, a small bit of it every 6 months. What we do is we do it on an annual basis. So it's generally paid out on a calendar year, not on a fiscal year, but on a calendar year. So it's paid out generally in December. So we do ours all at once. We don't, but it all depends on the community. I mean, some communities, like I said, they do it semi-annually. Some do it quarterly. The ones who paid higher amounts generally seem to do it quarterly. Everyone else is either annually or semi-annually.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Any further discussion? Motion been made and second to approve. All in favor? Carries 5-0.
Move to adjourn.
Motion has been made, seconded to adjourn. Also, we'll be asking, if it's already with the finance team, to ask for a suspension. All in favor? It carries 5-0. We are adjourned at 7:39 p.m. Thank you, Finance.